Hello and welcome back to all 441 of you incredible professional Pax Dei consumers out there, as well as the 60% of you who have not yet decided to hit that subscribe button. My name is Altari, the professional gamer, and this is another PAX Friday review, the show where we talk about all of the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has dropped for PAX Day over the last week. This week, we got a preview of two new builds, what looks to be some sort of chapel as well as a dojo. And in addition to that, we're going to be talking about some news coming up next week. We will be getting a new tech AMA from Mainframe on Tuesday. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So to be sure that you don't miss any of this exciting content related to PAX Day, please don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with any of your friends who might be interested in PAX Day, and as always, hit that subscribe button so that you can get notified whenever we post any new videos. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and get to all of the new screenshots. All right, so here we are back again with another 21 screenshots. We have what looks to be a couple of different builds, including a tower that's overlooking one of the cities that we saw last week. And in addition, some chapel looking structures, as well as a dojo of sorts in what looks to be a forested area as well. All really, really cool builds and some very unique building techniques that we see in these screenshots. So let's go ahead and start taking a look right off the bat. In this screenshot right here, the thing that just pops out like right in front of your face is this new symbol that we've seen. And in all of the past images of player-made structures, we've seen something similar to like the Pax Dei symbol in the form of maybe a cross or something like that. This is entirely unique. It obviously is using geometric shapes based on what players are able to use for the different angles. But in addition to that, we now see also a two-tiered sloped roof, which is something that we haven't seen a player make just yet. Or if we have, I just haven't noticed it. And I apologize. But then we also have some very unique, really, really small windows at the very, very top of this structure, as well as what looks to be one of the coolest internal builds in a church or just in any structure using internal lighting. Here's one of the first images of it, and you can see how it looks like, other than this really wide angle shot, which is super cool, the player is using the railing build piece that we've seen in a lot of other builds to really accent walls or do certain window work and stuff like that. But in this way, they're actually using them as essentially railing or fake walls or faux walls. And behind the wall, then, they're placing a bunch of lights like torches or floor torches in this case. And the lighting is hitting the walls and making it just really bright inside of the room. As we can see, this is one of the brighter internal structures that we've seen without a window and just a door on one side. And it looks really, really cool. And the integration between the wood and the stone is really well done too. So good job, whoever made this. Then one of the themes for this set of screenshots is the player who's taking them is actually in some of them and they're interacting with their environment. This one to me almost looks like a wooden version of the very beginning of the Iron Throne. There's no swords stacked on it yet or anything like that, but it's just a really big chair that the player seems to be sitting down on. Here appears to be another internal portion of the build for the chapel. And again, we can see the intricate work that's being done with the lighting to really brighten up a space without having to include natural lighting from windows. Here we can see what appears to be very intricate. I'm not sure where exactly this is located. It doesn't look like it's in the chapel area anymore. We can see some stairs here, but again, a really creative build. And this appears to be the same structure that we were just looking at. And this is just a porch or a vantage point. There might be some stairs coming down right here. I can't exactly tell, but we can see that the player is again making use of a chair. Here we can see what to me looks like the staircase that Frodo, Sam, and Gollum had to climb up in order to sneak into Shelob's lair before almost getting murdered by the giant spider. And it is just amazing, the stair work that's here. I really hope that when the game is released, players will be able to make, and this is almost like terraforming. You're making a way for players to climb a cliffside without having to climb a cliffside. And that's a really important thing in a lot of ways, because this staircase, it could lead to a city that's up here. Maybe an alternate route takes way longer to get to an important location, and this cuts that travel time into nothing. You could imagine that some players are even going to put blockers up here, like doors, and charge players a toll in order to use the road that they made. And this could be a totally legitimate business strategy for some players in game. And I think it adds a lot of epic fantasy feel to the game. So I'm really glad that we keep on seeing these staircases. Here is the tower. So I spoke earlier of the tower that's outside of the city, one of the cities from last week. And this is a perspective looking up at it. I think it's on kind of a mountain overlook that is looking down at the city. And it looks like this player used a little bit of some distancing between the walls and some stone pillars right here, because you can see almost some shadows and just a slightly different amount of depth, and that makes that tower look so much more realistic. And it's just generally really well done. And again, we have some stairs and just a really nice atmosphere with the sun rising and all of that. Here is another perspective of that same tower. So I think the camera previously was right down here. And we have off in the background what looks to be almost a processing hut or something like that. Another build is actively being worked on here. And then what appears to be a smaller version of the walls that were going around this city. So this was actually an earlier kind of in development photo of this large city that was working. You can even see that the church here looks to not even exist at this point. It's all just foundations, as well as a lot less of the buildings and streets. So this might have been a early on photo, but it's kind of cool to see how the cities are developing in the game and how many different buildings are emerging over time. And then I am really excited at some point. I hope that we get a full feature of what's going on in this little hilltop, but this is an amazing picture to kind of see how epic this, again, stairway, but then what almost looks like a castle on this peak overlooking the lake right here. This is amazing. And the build that's up here is super cool looking just from this angle. You can only imagine what we as players are going to be able to do when we're in game, and players are going to be looking for overlooks like this all of the time. Now here we just have a very atmospheric shot of what looks to be the top of one of these towers, and just a nice shot of some light reflecting off of the various chests and wood block that's here. And then this, judging by the shape of it, it looks more circular as well. So this might actually be what's inside of the tower. And it looks like the same player who was playing around with the railing and the lighting is definitely working on this as well. It makes sense because they were all posted in the same clump on Tuesday. But really interesting how they've integrated a lot of the what looks to be workbenches and furniture together to make a really well lived in environment. Here's the under staircase shot from one of these buildings. And then right here, it looks like we have more images from the inside of this tower, and it's multi-layered and multi-leveled. And there's just a lot of different activities for players to be able to do inside this tower. Maybe it might be in a different location because this looks like it's more open over there. It might actually be in the chapel. There's no way of me being able to tell at this point. Then here we have another example of the usage of all the furniture pieces to make a much more lived-in feeling for a build. And then we also have chests that are kind of slightly notched out of cabinetry and bags that are placed, as well as a nice flowering pot. Although I don't know how that plant is surviving. It's not getting much direct sunlight. But again, a really well done, well thought out design for an interior. And then the player working on that same bench that we just saw, but from the outside looking in, and looks like they're hard at work making something. Now here we transition into the next set of build screenshots. This appears to be more of kind of an Asian style, almost dojo like build, and it's actually really cool to see that players have the ability to build these varying types of structures, and it also kind of shows where a lot of snap points are on these builds. So we can see that those give a lot of different opportunities to be able to build very unique looking structures very easily. And here's just another perspective of it. I know some people were talking about on the Discord, the general Discord, that this was maybe a little too off canter from what should be there. But creativity is creativity. And if you're inspired to make something and you're in game, you should be able to do it. Now, obviously, there are some concerns. I know Asmongold, we did a video on this a long while ago where he mentioned what happens if a player, just to troll someone, builds a giant phallic object in the game and forces everyone to look at it, or advertises a company or something like that. There needs to be some level of moderation and regulation, or the ability for the community to maybe enforce a standard on a build. But then there's also the issue of that being abused by other groups or bad actors as well. So it's definitely a balancing act that Mainframe's going to have to try and tackle. I don't think there is ever really going to be a correct answer for any of this, but there's just different levels of bad answers. So I'll be very interested to see how Mainframe kind of comes about in moderating how buildings work. I think the player was being quite creative and they're staying true to what they wanted to build, and I can't wait to see other unique builds like this and how people are making them in game. Here's another image of it here as well, and it looks like this might be a part of a larger area or a larger construction area where there's a lot of similarly themed buildings. And then here we see more of a traditional, almost European structure as well, where there seems to be a tower, or this might even be kind of a mock-up of a bridge where there are two different sides, and you could picture maybe the rest of a tower wall that's going around it. And in reality, if someone built a wall that looked like this component right here, and this was the gate that went underneath it, and this is the gatehouse, that is incredible. And I can picture it right now in my mind of this being something that I would really like to try and build and expand upon with more walls going on around it. But again, really creative build. And it looks like this player was playing with several different iterations of that same build, with the towers on either side and then a house in the middle. That is all of the screenshots that we have for this week. So 21 screenshots, a lot of different angles and new styles of building, some really well decorated areas and some really well lit areas as well. And it's very interesting seeing all of these different styles of builds, and I can't wait for Mainframe to continue releasing more of these. It makes me wonder how many weeks of these drops they have, because they've essentially doubled their number of screenshots that they're releasing a week, if not tripled or quadrupled based on the total number of screenshots that we're getting. I know during the dark ages of the middle of this summer, we were getting maybe 4 or 5 screenshots. So getting 21 is a very big and welcome change. And I appreciate what Mainframe's doing by giving us more content to look at. And speaking about content for Pax Dei and getting more information from Mainframe, this next Tuesday, we are going to be getting a tech AMA/FAQ from the developer. I have absolutely no idea what this is going to entail necessarily, but I have several questions related to tech that I would be very excited to get some answers on. One of the biggest ones is right now we know that it's on an earlier version of Unreal Engine 5.1. I don't know if they ever mentioned it switching over to anything higher than 5.1. They might have mentioned it way back in the summertime. But one thing that we know about the later versions of Unreal Engine is that foliage, much like what we see right here, switches over to the nanite component of Unreal Engine, which allows for a lot of polygons to be generated from really close up to really, really far away. It's a completely different way of doing level of detail in a game. And one of the things that you can notice right here, even in this picture, is we have all of this incredibly well lit, incredibly detailed forestry. And then right here where it looks like it should continue a little bit more, it just stops. And that to me tells me that there is a render stop at a certain point. And that's because the engine isn't using nanite on foliage and leaves and stuff like that. So I'll be interested to see if they talk about any of that during the tech AMA. But more importantly, we haven't heard a lot of information about how the game is going to run, how the networking is going to run on it, how player clients are interacting with the server. We know that Pax Dei is going to be a cloud native game, and I have a video that I did several months ago on why that's a very interesting thing, and in my opinion is the future of gaming. But in addition to that, we haven't heard anything about how the permission system in game is going to work, or even the clan system or any of the social systems are going to work. And I'm not sure if that necessarily qualifies in the tech AMA, but it'll be interesting to see if we get some feedback on that as well. But more importantly, and one thing that we've all been asking for, we're looking forward to an update on combat. Now, I would imagine the combat AMA is something that is in the future, so it's probably not going to be touched on in the tech AMA, but we might get some information on how combat interacts with the technology, with their server technology, with Unreal Engine. We might not hear how balancing works or how attacking works and all of that, but we'll definitely have potential to hear some more information on combat and stuff like that as well. But other than that, I am just excited to be getting back on the train of getting information from Mainframe with specifics about different gameplay systems. So you all can expect to see a tech AMA update video after the AMA goes live next week. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, I hope to see you around next week. If you haven't done so, be sure to hit that like button, share this video with anyone who is interested in Pax Dei, and have a great rest of your week.